conservative, um, being less traditional in reform. Uh, I don't want to use the term modern, but
The most,
but
probably the most open to innovation, I think, would probably be as good a way to put it. Yeah,
okay.
we are, we tend to, as Reform Jews, to be willing to probably make some more changes than the other branches of Judaism would. Good summary.
Have you studied in Israel at all?
I did sort of. I didn't. There's a first year in Israel that most people do. I wasn't able to spend that year in Israel, but I have gone over to Israel numerous times and have studied. For instance, I've taken courses over the course of a summer, or part of a summer, in Jerusalem with a great organization called the Hartman Institute. So, yeah.
Great.
And I haven't been there in 2 years, and I miss it terribly, and I need to find a way to get back soon.
The your children, I
Yes.
gather they're grown up now?
They are, at least, well, sometimes. Sorry, kids. No, we have 3 kids. Our son David is 20 years old. His twin sister Catherine, also therefore of course 20, and Andrew, who is 18.
Oh, okay. So they're still relatively young.
Yes, exactly.
Going to school?
Well, each in their own way, yeah. David has some special needs. He's got a form of autism, so he attends a special needs school. We see him most weekends. His sister, Catherine, Kitty as she's known, is moving into her junior year at Smith College. And our youngest, Andrew, is going to be a freshman this year at the University of Arizona.
So it's a good time for you to move into
Exactly.
a new community.
Exactly.
It's a good time for you to begin.
Exactly.
Rabbi means teacher.
Yes.
Okay. What do you perceive, or what does the congregation perceive as your duties at the temple?
The duties of a rabbi, there were all kinds of humorous stories that basically has a congregation trying to figure out what they want in a rabbi, and by the time they finished, Moses himself wouldn't be able to satisfy it. And I don't mean this congregation or any congregation is necessarily expects everything, but you have do a lot of things. Teaching is a big part of the job, and really in some ways still the central part. So I'm always trying to help people find where they are on their pathway in Judaism and move them a step further along. That's my core job. But with that, as a practical matter, comes adult education, working with the kids, helping them as they prepare for bar bat mitzvah when they're 13, helping them prepare for confirmation, the end of religious school, at the end of 10th grade. It includes working with getting on the floor with the little kids and helping them see what's exciting about Judaism. It includes leading services, visiting the sick, helping people with life cycle events, weddings, funerals, and the like. The whole range of much of the whole range of things that goes on with Christian clergy, and then sort of our own Jewish spin on it.
What moved you from attorney to a rabbi?
So what I like to say to people sometimes is that I simply wanted to be in a job that when I stood up, I couldn't be sure that half the people would want me to fail. But no, more seriously. Well, I think I sort of explained a little of it before. It put together a lot of the things that were important to me. In lawyer terms, I had a client I could care about, God and the Jewish people, and be completely committed to. It was an opportunity it was selfish. It was an opportunity for me to learn. There's so much in Judaism to learn. And now, I get to do that and say, hey, it's part of my work. It was an opportunity to help people, which I wanted to do. It's why I went into public interest law. And it was, and it felt like it put everything together for me.
I noticed that there's a distinction between Christian in Jewish thought in this respect, that a lot of times Christians will say they're called. They felt called. I never heard that once from you, and my understanding is that really doesn't apply in Judaism, the feel of being called.
Well, that's a funny story.
Okay.
So, yes, I could say, yes, the concept of calling or vocation is a very specific sense that God wants you to do something, to do the task of leading the community, the way a priest is expected to be called. Doesn't apply in Judaism because really all jobs are in a sense equal, and being the rabbi is not any holier than any number of other things. So in that sense, from our perspective, I'm not called. On the other hand, the specific story of how I came to be a rabbi is that I was taking a walk with my wife one day. I'd thought about being a rabbi years before and had set it aside and went on to other things. I was taking a walk with my wife one day, and I was saying, I don't really like what I'm doing. It's not what I want to do. And she said, what do you want to do? I said, you mean anything at all? She said, yes. And I said, I want to be a rabbi. I had not been thinking about it. Now, from my perspective, that felt a lot like a calling. So I'm not going to say that people aren't called to do things, and I think this may be mine. It feels like the right thing.
You were open to the movement and aware of the presence.
Right. However, I was also enough of a rationalist that I immediately started to come up with all the reasons why that was a silly idea. And I said, but I can't. Well, for instance, I'm too old, and I can't do this. And my wife said, well, why don't you go talk to our rabbi? So I did. And I went to see our rabbi and said, I had this idea. I thought I might become a rabbi. But of course, and I went through the whole list of reasons, and I'm too old and so forth. And he said, here, let me give you this phone number. I want you to call this woman. So I called her. Turned out to be a member of that same congregation who was several years older than I and was in rabbinical school at the time. Okay, so much for that excuse. And, it took a while to make it all happen, but my wife was amazing in all of this, and we made it happen.
How much did prayer play in this progression?
So the answer is that prayer is important to me. It isn't, I don't so much tend to pray on a subject in the way that I hear my Christian colleagues and friends describe. For instance, you sit there and say, just pray and wait for God to come up with an answer. But I tried to open myself to where God was leading me, and I got into a discipline of praying regularly, which has been important to me.
Vocal or mental?
Vocal by and large.
Your own words or
no? Usually more the prescribed words of Jewish prayer. But when you get to a point in them, you can sort of let your own thoughts live on one level while you're saying the words on another, and that's what I try to do.
I've experienced that Jewish services on the Sabbath are very family-oriented and very, very relaxed in the Reformed tradition. How would you describe that Sabbath process.